Friends, so we are rewinding a little bit here at First United because some of you recall the beginning of this year started a little snowy, right? So we weren't able to gather together on what was supposed to have been Epiphany Sunday. And we moved that a Sunday later, which was supposed to be the Baptism of Jesus Sunday. So you'd have thought, okay, maybe we'd just bumped it to the next week, but I was gone, okay? And I didn't want to put that on a guest preacher and leader of worship, no matter how competent she may have been. And also, just kind of selfishly, I wanted to celebrate the Baptism of Jesus Sunday with you all. So here we are, and I wanted to share with you this piece of art that is hanging in my office regularly. You're invited to come forward after the service at some point if you would like to see it more closely by Hiki, the Baptism of Jesus. It's a big deal, Jesus' baptism. Well, you would think it's a big deal by how it has its own Sunday every year. But it just had a couple of little sentences about it in the Gospel of Luke, right? The Gospel of Luke is where we have been traversing, we have been exploring throughout this year, this liturgical year that began with Advent. And true to form, Luke seems to focus on somebody else primarily in this section. He's talking a lot about John again, right? John this and John that, and the people were going out to see John. It's all about John. I remind you, John was a big deal at this time and in this place. So those who were seeking to say, those who were trying to help people understand who Jesus was and who they understood Jesus to be as this extraordinary human being, as indeed the Son of God, a chosen one of God, an anointed one of God. Even calling this one by a name used for God, which we translate into English as a Lord, which we don't use very often in this place because of monarchical language and because of the history of slavery in this country, right? But they had to do something, these writers, to help their community understand that though John was a big deal, Jesus was the main event. Jesus was the real deal. So we see in this section, this pericope, this set of verses in Luke, which we don't get in the Gospel of Mark. Remember, he starts off with this. It is a big deal in the Gospel of Mark because this is where Jesus becomes imbued with the Spirit of the divine. Not like Matthew and Luke, who make it happen earlier, who make it happen at conception. And not way before, like in the Gospel of John, where it happens at the beginning of all, beginning of creation, right? The beginning of everything. But here again, Luke is trying to tell his audience, it seems, the writer we call Luke, is helping them to see that it's Jesus. Jesus was the one we were waiting for. And we still have this beautiful moment, this beautiful story of Jesus being washed in the water just like everybody else. I love that part of it. He went with everybody else. He was a regular human being, just a regular dude, a regular guy, and came to be washed by these waters. And our story says, our story proclaims that God's Spirit, God's self, descended on him and proclaimed him as God's own, God's beloved, and announces that God is pleased with this one. This continues to affirm Jesus' ministry. It's like who he was, right? Who Jesus was as an adult, how he lived and how he moved, how he engaged with others, especially those at the margins of society, those who had been thrown away, cast aside. To proclaim him as a chosen one of God, as God's own beloved one, affirms that ministry. It shows that Jesus had this intimate relationship, this closeness with the divine. And it also would likely bring to mind, once again, put at the front, the difference between Jesus as a son of God and another who was proclaimed a son of God, aka Caesar. But what comes through most fully for me is that regular person thing. Jesus being a regular person, coming to the water and experiencing this embrace and this love. And it is one of my deepest held convictions and beliefs that this message is not for Jesus alone. Indeed, this message of belonging, of belovedness, of God being pleased with who you are, this message is for us all. We are each and all God's beloved. Jesus proclaimed this message over and over and over again throughout his ministry. Right? When he was healing others, the message was, you are beloved. This one whom we have been saying, whom history, whom custom has told us, has been cast aside and maybe is being punished by God, this one is beloved, wholly, fully loved by the divine. He did it in his teachings as well. He taught us to love God, of course, but to love one another as we love ourselves. He invited and challenged us and inspired us to experience that belovedness. When Jesus welcomed, when Jesus dined with folks, the message, you are beloved. These ones are loved by God. Even when he was going up against authorities, even going up against those in places of power, even in those moments, as he spoke truth, as he challenged them, he was proclaiming to them, you are beloved. He valued them enough. He saw that God valued them enough to speak truth to them, to invite them and to encourage them and to inspire them and call them to live more fully and authentically as the beloved ones they are by loving each and every one of God's creation. That's what Jesus was all about. Not that I alone am loved, right? But you, that we are loved. And I think, feel free to disagree with me, I think this is a message we continue to need to hear, to experience, to swallow today. We live in a world and in a society that has constantly and over and over again tells us we are not smart enough, we are not good enough, we are not rich enough. Simply put, we are not enough. But Jesus' entire ministry is exactly the opposite of that. Who God is antithetical to that message. But when you hear and you see and you experience this counter narrative over and over and over again, it can seep in. So a couple of weeks ago, it was seeping in. It was seeping in here. It was seeping in here. So I wrote a song for myself to help me to embrace this message. And I don't know, if it's just like the pastor in me, I can't help but to write things for you while I'm also writing for myself, because I'm like, hey, if this works for me, if this is a good thing for me, maybe others could benefit from this. So friends, I want to share with you that song today. And again, that whole pastor thing, it's a call and response. It's a repeat after me so you can be a part of it. I'm not just going to sing it at you. And this first verse, I wrote it in 3 verses that are very, very similar and very simple to pick up on. I invite you to sit comfortably and to sing to yourself. Let these words fill you. Let these words surround you. Let them embrace you. So I will sing a line, and then I'll invite you to sing a line. But first, let me get a quick drink, because I've been talking a lot. My throat's getting a little dried out. So let's take in a deep breath and let it go. I am enough. I am enough. I am loved by God. I am loved by God. I have so many gifts. I have so many gifts. I deserve great bliss. I deserve great bliss. I am enough. I am enough. I am loved by God. I am loved by God. Okay, so sometimes we tell ourselves things, and they kind of stick, and they kind of don't. So sometimes we need a community, and we need to hear from others. We need groups of people who affirm our value and our worth as well, so we're not trying to go it alone. So this second verse, with one word, really changed. Okay, 2 for those who are grammar folks, because they got to change the am to an are. You are enough, okay? I invite you to look around at each other. If you are really brave, you might just look at one person and sing this to that one person. I know it's awkward and that we are not used to being this fully vulnerable with one another, so let's give each other some grace. If your eyes avert for a moment, that's okay. But we're going to sing to each other, all right? Again, we'll do it in the repeat after me style. Let's take in a deep breath again. And out. And see these beloved ones around you. You are enough. You are enough. You are loved by God. You are loved by God. You have so many gifts. You have so many gifts. You deserve great bliss. You deserve great bliss. You are enough. You are enough. You are loved by God. You are loved by God. Friends, we are a community, right? We are individuals, but we are also connected with each other. We are committed to one another, and we do things together that we can't do apart from one another. So I invite you to join in affirming the enoughness, the belovedness, the giftedness of this community. Once more, in the repeat after me fashion, we are enough. We are enough. We are loved by God. We are loved by God. We have so many gifts. We have so many gifts. We deserve great bliss. We deserve great bliss. We are enough. We are enough. We are loved by God. We are loved by God. Friends, I trust and I wholly believe that when we can accept, when we experience and when we receive our enoughness, our belovedness, our giftedness, and we acknowledge that we deserve to experience joy in this world, that we will be inspired, that we will be challenged, that we will be called and pushed to affirm that. The enoughness, the belovedness, the giftedness, the deserving of joyness in every other member of God's creation, in every other member of our community, but not just with our personal actions. Yes, that matters. How we live our lives in loving ways each and every day, affirming another's value, dignity, worth, belovedness matters. And experiencing and accepting our belovedness, our being deserving of joy will push us, will call us, will inspire us to co-create practices and policies that make a world, that make a nation, that make a state, that make a county, a city, a community that has those practices and has those policies, that affirms that worth, that affirms that belovedness, that enoughness in each and every member of that community, and each and every one who lives and moves and has their being in that city, in that county, in that state, in that nation, in that world. no matter what their gender identity or sexual orientation, no matter what their country of origin or their immigration status, no matter what their race or ethnicity, no matter what their age or ability, no matter what their political party or their religion. We are called to love. To love in our personal actions, and to love in our communal practices, policies, and actions as well. Friends, that's what I've been hearing. That's what I've been experiencing. That's what I have been thinking about as I read, as I have lived with this ancient story of Jesus' baptism. But how is it striking you? How is the divine inviting you? How is the Spirit moving you as you encounter this story again, in this time and in this place? I'm going to give you a few moments to reflect, to meditate, to pray. Friends, let us be together now for a moment of pause.